Hey guys, welcome to CakeWalk Cambridge. I'm Aisha and today we're going to start with chapter 14, Coordination and Response. If you've seen your textbooks already or if you've learned this in school, you'll know that this chapter is long. So I decided to break this chapter down as per the syllabus and do it in 5 segments. So the videos will be shorter, less monotonous. I will also try and upload all 5 segments together as video as well as individually. So if you want to learn everything at one go, you can do that as well without having to click the next link. So let's get started. This chapter is extremely important. You get a lot of marks here and your theory of this chapter has to be absolutely on point. It's also scoring, so don't let the difficulty part cloud your judgment about this chapter. So let's start. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know about the nervous system is that there are two components, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Okay, so the central nervous system comprises two parts, your brain and spinal cord, as mentioned here. Your spinal cord is enclosed in your backbone, your vertebral column, okay, and your brain is enclosed in your cranium, in your it's in your head, you know that. Okay, so messages from your central nervous system are called motor impulses. So basically an impulse is an electrical signal or message, okay, that is transmitted across the body. So messages from the central nervous system are called motor impulses and neurons that carry these impulses are called motor neurons, okay. Now the peripheral nervous system only comprises neurons, okay. Neurons can be motor neurons or sensory neurons or relay neurons. There are 3 types of neurons which we will look into later. Okay, so that's all that the peripheral nervous system comprises. Messages from the peripheral nervous system are called sensory impulses and these are carried by sensory neurons. It's just the opposite of the central nervous system. So these carry messages to the central nervous system. Okay. So when I write, so here CNS, when I'm going to write CNS is central nervous system and PNS is peripheral nervous system. So CNS to PNS is motor. Everything is going to be motor. Okay. And vice versa. Yeah, you know what I mean. Is going to be sensory. Okay. This concept has to be etched into your mind. Okay. You just cannot forget this because this is like a basic, okay. And also very often you get 2 marks just for writing the 2 components of the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. So memorize those 2, for sure. You can't forget those 2, okay. Brain and spinal cord in the central nervous system, okay. So that was the first part that you need to understand of this chapter. I hope you got that clear. Okay, now a motor neuron. Okay, so motor neuron basically carries impulses from the central nervous system to the effector. Okay, so now we're going to look at this term effector. There are many new terms that you're going to come across, but we're going to go through them together. So an effector is either a muscle or gland. Okay, so we're first going to look at the definition of impulse. As I already said below, you need to know this by heart. You cannot not know this because this comes from a mark. So a nerve impulse is an electric signal that passes along nerve cells called neurons. So nerve cells are called neurons and a nerve impulse is an electrical signal or a message. Okay, you use the word signal. That's the scientific term. So they carry impulses from the central nervous system to the effector. The effector is the muscle or gland. So if I tell you that there is a motor impulse that is traveling to let's say the bicep, your bicep is a muscle and your muscle is an effector. So in this case study, if you're asked or required to identify the effector, you should know that the effector is going to be your bicep muscle, or let's say your adrenal gland or your pancreatic gland, whatever it is. So just know you will also sometimes be asked to name muscles and glands. So you should be able to know these. Muscles you will come across as you study the whole portion of IGCSE bio. There are no specific muscles that you will need to know. But for your glands, you will get to know more about them in one of the segments in this chapter itself. Okay, so this is the structure of a motor neuron. So first you have the cell body over here, which has the nucleus, okay, right in the center as you can make out. Okay, bound by the nuclear membrane. You have the cytoplasm, which is a watery jelly-like structure that surrounds the nucleus. You have the cell surface membrane that is out here, the cell membrane basically. You have a synapse. A synapse is basically a junction or a gap between two neurons. We will also come to that part later in this chapter. Now you have dendrites, okay, which are extensions from a neuron, okay, that extend from the cell membrane. You have an axon, which is this long, so basically the axon is what provides connection. So the axon is like the body, that like this long film between your cell body and your motor end plate that is over here. Okay, so and this part makes connections to effectors and muscles. Now this axon is surrounded by a myelin sheath. Now myelin is basically fatty substance, and the myelin sheath, I've done a small course, like I started a course in neurobio, so I know a bit of this. It helps to transmit the impulse faster because it is insulated by this fatty layer, myelin sheath. The impulse is able to move faster across the neuron by like many times. I've forgotten the number exactly, but the myelin sheath helps to transmit impulses quicker. Okay, and this is your effector, which could be a muscle or gland. Okay, so this is basically the structure of a neuron. Okay, so you need to be able to know this. Okay, properly. You can't not know this. Okay, and one thing that you need to know. So basically, a few adaptations of your neurons are that they are long, so they transmit impulses across long distances. You have your neurotransmitter on one side and receptor molecules on the other side of a synapse. So this causes the one-way flow, directional flow of the impulse as well. Then your myelin sheath allows the impulse to travel quicker. Okay, so these are like some adaptations that you will learn. So the receptor molecules and neurotransmitter molecules you will learn later in this chapter. Okay. Now, a relay neuron basically makes connections to other neurons. Okay, it's neither motor nor sensory. Okay, so here you have your cell body. Okay, with your cytoplasm, your nucleus. This is your axon. These dots in the middle show that it's much longer than what it's actually drawn out to be. So that's the distance. Okay. The axon ends here, and these are dendrites, okay, that make connections to other neurons as well. So this is basically your relay neuron. Makes connections to other neurons. That's all you need to know. Okay, most relay neurons are found in the central nervous system. Okay. Now your sensory neurons send electrical impulses to a relay neuron, which is located in the spinal cord. As I said, relay neurons are located in the central nervous system. A component of the central nervous system is your spinal cord. Okay. So for a sensory neuron, you first have receptor cells. So first I'm just going to tell you your five senses, as you know, are sight, taste, touch, smell, and hearing. Okay. So these receptor cells are present in your sense organs. Okay, like you have receptor cells in your skin, etc. So these receptor cells. Then you have dendrites. Okay. You have a myelin sheath and your axon terminals. You have your cell body, cytoplasm, and nucleus. Okay, so sensory neurons. So basically, what happens is the nerve impulse moves from here up. Okay, so you should know that the receptor cells are always the first to detect a stimuli. A stimuli is basically a change in the external or internal environment of an organism. Okay, so that is basically a sensory neuron. Okay. Now, actions, you have two types of actions, voluntary actions and involuntary actions. So, voluntary actions are controlled consciously. So, for example, if I decide to like clap, that's voluntary. I'm telling myself I need to clap, so I'll clap. Okay, my brain sends a message. It has a different reaction every time. So, so like supposing so my friend wins a race, okay? So sometimes I may clap, sometimes I may scream, sometimes I may shout, sometimes I may go hug her. It depends because this time I'm controlling what I want to do, okay? So your reaction every time is going to be different. It's much slower because you're actually consciously thinking about what you need to do, okay? So it's slower, and it's used for everyday activities, okay? Involuntary actions are subconscious. For example, blinking. I blink like all the time. Everyone does, but I don't know I'm blinking. Okay, it's a mechanism in my body. Now it has the same response every time. So for example, if I pick up a really hot cup of tea, okay, that's like steaming hot. Okay, if I pick it up, I'm probably going to like put it down and say ah, or like ouch, or like do that, okay? Or like just drop it. Because there's no time to like think about the reaction. It's just going to be the same every time. There's something hot, I'm going to drop it. My body can't take it, okay? It's much faster because you're not actually thinking about what you're doing. Okay, this is happening via your reflex arc, which we will come to. And it's for protective actions. As I said, dropping your cup of tea or whatever, it's hot, so you drop it because you're protecting your body from getting burned, your skin from getting burned. This is your reflex arc. Your reflex arc is the nervous pathway for reflexes. Okay, so basically you need to know the definition of a reflex, which is given over here. A reflex action is a means of automatically and rapidly integrating and coordinating stimuli with the responses of effectors. Okay, let's go through this slowly. A reflex action is a subconscious and voluntary action. Okay, means of automatically and rapidly integrating and coordinating. That's just okay. Automatically and rapidly means quickly and without thought, subconsciously and fast and quickly. Integrating and coordinating means combining and joining stimuli, which is changes in your external environment, with responses of effectors. That means with the action taken by muscles and glands. Okay, so basically, reflex actions are involuntary subconscious reactions that occur quickly and without thinking. And the main goal is to coordinate or to combine or to bridge the gap between external and internal changes in your environment to the actions that your muscles and glands will carry out. That's basically it. So this is the order for your reflex arc. So first there is a stimulus, which is the change in the external or internal environment of an organism. Now please note, I keep using definitions so that you keep hearing them so that you memorize them while I'm talking. Okay. So you should do the same. Whenever you're like reading a chapter, you see a word that you know the definition of, or even if you don't know the definition, you look it up, but you like say it mentally or say it out loud, whatever helps your memory. Okay, stimulus, then receptor, so stimulus, receptor, then it goes to your sensory neuron. This is basically how your impulses work. Then it goes to a relay neuron coordinates it to a motor neuron, which then moves to an effector, and then you make your response. Okay, there's no real way to explain this. Okay, you just need to be able to learn this. Okay, and when you get a diagram, you should be able to identify the direction of the impulse. Okay. Okay, so now at a synapse. A synapse is a junction between two neurons. So in a reflex arc, synapses ensure that impulses travel in one direction only. Okay. So many drugs like heroin act on synapses. Now heroin, we're just going to mark this here. Heroin is a depressant. Okay, just know heroin is a depressant drug, which means it binds to your synapses. Okay, I'll explain what a depressant is later. Okay. Okay, so basically, heroin is a depressant. Just need to know that for now. If you're ever able to identify if you're ever required to identify what heroin is, it is a depressant. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so here I'm going to finally explain this part of the chapter, what happens at a synapse. It's one of my favorite things to explain in this chapter, and it's so scoring. You have questions for like 4 marks over here that you need to answer, 4 to 6 marks, okay, and you have another 5 marks to identify what these structures are, okay. So this is your presynaptic neuron, this is your synapse, and this is your postsynaptic neuron. As you know, pre means before, post means after. So this is the synapse. Okay. So basically an impulse travels in your via your presynaptic neuron. It causes this vesicle, this is a vesicle, it causes this vesicle to release neurotransmitter substance. Neurotransmitter are these small little dots that are represented here. Okay. So this neurotransmitter substance diffuses across the synaptic cleft, this being the synaptic cleft. The synaptic cleft is basically a gap, okay, between two neurons, which is basically a synapse. So it diffuses across the synaptic cleft and binds to the receptor molecules over here to form neurotransmitter receptor molecules, okay. Now what happens is, when this happens, the impulse reaches the next neuron And then this impulse that reaches the next neuron triggers the vesicles in this neuron to release neurotransmitter to diffuse across the next synaptic cleft. Okay, so this process continues. So sometimes it takes one impulse to cause the vesicles to release neurotransmitter substance, and sometimes it takes multiple impulses. It completely depends. Okay, and so this is basically what you need to know. Yeah, now how heroin works. Heroin is a depressant. So basically, if I have consumed heroin and if I touch a needle and I'm supposed to feel pain, right, because of the tiny surface area, increased pressure. So what happens is the impulse for pain will reach here and cause the neurotransmitter to release the vesicles to release neurotransmitter as it should. Okay. Neurotransmitter will diffuse across the synaptic cleft, but heroin molecules are complementary to the receptor. You should be able to state this. Heroin molecules are complementary to the receptor. Heroin is a depressant, so heroin molecules bind to the receptor molecules in place of the neurotransmitter molecules. So the impulse that should reach the receptor molecules is blocked. The impulse can't travel further. Okay? So due to this thing happening, you don't feel pain, and people who consume heroin always are at a high. They're on a high. They feel high. Okay, they feel good because they don't feel stuff like pain because impulses are blocked. That is why heroin is a depressant. Okay, now the last thing I want to tell you is the adaptations for neurons, which is in your syllabus. I only mentioned two earlier. I just want to clarify and state all. So one is that neurons are long, which means they can transmit impulses over long distances. Two is that neurons allow the synapses allow the unidirectional flow of impulses because you have vesicles on one side and receptor molecules on the other side of a synapse. Three is that vesicles release neurotransmitter substance, and four is the presence of mitochondria that basically releases energy to allow the conduction of nerve impulses. In chapters 11 and 12, we have discussed that one use of energy is the conduction of nerve impulses, so that is basically how it works. This was the first part of your chapter 14.1. I know it's a lot to take in, but I assure you the more you go through it, the more you repeat definitions in your head out loud, write them down, do practice papers, you will get better. So please like and share this video. If it helped you, you can comment down below if you have any suggestions. Feel free to email me if you have any other questions, and please subscribe to my channel if this helped you because that will really help me. So I hope this helped you, and don't worry, we'll get through this together.